Welcome to the Collector's Archive, Season 5, Episode 3.
Okay, so we've had the intro, fancy music, Vault Keeper's chatted away as he does, bless him. And there we go. So, good afternoon, Lucas. How are we doing, sir?
All right, thanks. How are you?
I'm splendid. Thank you very much for asking. Thank you for finally relenting and agreeing to come on the Collector's Archive. You know, I mean, I've been chasing you a couple of years for this one.
You have. I'm going through a difficult couple of years, to be frank, but I relented, and it's thanks for having me on, Ed. I really appreciate it.
No, I understand, and you know, we've chatted about and that, and I appreciate you taking the time. So no, it's all good. So let's get down to it, I suppose. And do you want to tell us what do you collect?
He forgot to ask him.
He? Who's he?
You.
Me? Don't you mean him?
That's what I said.
I'm confused.
What a surprise. You had better tell people where they can find Lucas on his socials.
People?
Yes, the people that will be watching.
You mean people actually watch this?
I know, funny isn't it? But you'd best do it all the same.
Okay. You can find Lucas on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube under the headings of RoboLukas and RoboLukas Decal Store. Are we done now?
Yes, best let him get on with it now.
Him? Who's him?
I've confused you again, haven't I?
What do I collect? I collect.
Oh, should I say? Sorry, I'm not even asking my own questions properly, am I? Sorry. What is your main What is your main collecting focus?
My main focus is G1 Toon MP, but and there's a big but. I stray from that all the time. I'm a bit like a magpie. Right. I pick up. I collect legend scale. I collect mainline stuff, which I pick up to do custom stuff with. I pick up weird KOs. I pick up odd stuff that's not from the G1 cartoon at all because I just think it's cool. But I'm supposed to be focusing on the G1 mainline cartoon style stuff because that's, where my history is, what I remember.
Good stuff. Right. Why do you collect?
Well, there's an element of nostalgia there, obviously. I mean, I was born in the mid-70s. I grew up with this stuff, and to a certain extent, we were all buying back our childhood a bit.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I started collecting in 2019.
Right.
And it's been a really good focus for me and distraction as I've gone through some difficult times in my personal life. And it's just something nice and positive to focus on. I just really enjoy getting these figures, remembering these figures.
Yeah.
It's also something I enjoy with my sons. I've got a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
The 9-year-old not so much into it. All he cares about is Bumblebee, but the older one is really into the mainline figures, so it's a shared interest with them. Another big part of it for me is the photography side of things. I really enjoy.
Yeah.
But I'm not a great one for fiddling with figures, transforming back and forth all the time. I like having them, and for me, the play element, a lot of that is the taking photographs. It's how I play with my toys. I like to pose them, to photograph them, to capture them, to share those images with people. And once I've done that, pretty much, then they go on the shelf. Another part of collecting for me that motivates me is, I've mentioned sharing the photos. I also enjoy I've been getting back into it more recently, but I enjoy making and sharing YouTube content as well, doing videos, sharing comparisons of figures. I'm not a great one I don't do transformation guides online because I think there's people out there that are better than me to do that sort of thing. But I like showing people their options, and I do quite a lot of comparison videos. Like recently looked at the DX9 breakdown Stunticon versus the Van Stories breakdown Stunticon, stuff like that. I like doing stuff like that. Not that I get a huge amount of engagement, but it's another way to enjoy the collecting for me.
Yeah, you've kind of rolled, quite a few answers in there to the questions, that like the second part to the questions that we're going to ask you. But I'm just trying to. Did you mention sort of like the goal aspect of it? Like with your collecting. I know you touched briefly on the motivation and that, but would you say there's do you have like a goal that you want to achieve with your collection, like an end game, or is it just you just kind of like meander down the stream, so to speak?
I think it's funny when people talk about an end game and I've completed my collection. I don't see it in that way at all. It's very open-ended for me. I stumble across new stuff that interests me all the time. I've mentioned like the G1 art crew, and I do have a notepad on my phone, I think, of the G1 art collection, and I do keep. It's something I introduced after when someone else was talking about it. I thought, oh yeah, G1 art collection, and I looked on TF Wiki to see exactly what the lineup was, and I've got all but 2 of them. In masterpiece form. The only ones I'm missing are Bumblebee and Windcharger. I did have MP, is it 45? The newer Bumblebee?
Yes.
Yeah. I did, but I sold it because I really didn't like it. So the only ones I'm missing in masterpiece scale are Bumblebee and Windcharger. But it's not that I was aiming for the art crew. I just thought, let's have a look, see if I have got them all. And I did have pretty much all of them at one point, but it'd be just because I like lists, I like to keep spreadsheets of the robots. It'd be nice if I do tick that off, but that's certainly not a goal. It'll just be, incidentally, I happen to have that, and the boundaries of my collection are very fuzzy in terms of what I collect and what I aim for. So there's never going to be a finished for me. There's not a goal. I just, like I say, I'm a bit of a magpie. I see something shiny and I think, I think I'll have that. Right. I'm a terrible collector in terms of discipline. I just like stuff and pick it up.
I know you mentioned that you got into the collecting in 2019.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, was there any particular circumstances that brought you back to it, or was it just a case of, was there a particular figure that you just happened upon and you just thought, I'll have that, and then it kind of snowballed from there?
Yeah, so it's funny because these days Facebook for me is where I go to share information about robots, find information about robots, share photos. It's there's groups that I'm in. It's all about robots, but some people, certainly people in the community, might not remember that Facebook used to be somewhere that you kept in touch with your old friends. And before I knew anything about Masterpiece Transformers, I, like many other people, had a Facebook. And so it was mid-2019. I distinctly remember seeing Masterpiece Sunstreaker. And I'm 90% sure 95, no, I'm almost 100% sure it would have been on Facebook.
Right.
Now, the only thing I can think is one of my old university housemates, who's called Ray, who is, I know now, active in several of the UK Transformers groups.
All right, okay.
I'm gonna blame Ray.
Right.
I can't think of any other way I would have seen a Masterpiece Transformer on Facebook. Because I don't really have any other mutual in real life friends who are into Transformers.
No.
Apart from Ray.
Right.
And so I'm going to blame Ray for sharing a picture of Masterpiece Sunstreaker. And I saw that and I was like, what's that? I was like, what is that? That is amazing. And I started to look into it. And I looked up Masterpiece Sunstreaker and I thought, sod that's a bit expensive.
Yeah.
And then I looked on eBay and I saw a KO Masterpiece Sunstreak. So 2019, I don't know if that, I think it must have been the official reissue that was around that time, possibly, because there was a KO available. And I ordered it. And I ordered the KO Sunstreaker from eBay, and I got it shipped from Shanghai, and I received it, and I was disappointed. I shipped it back. I sent it back to Shanghai because I just didn't think it was great quality. But shortly after that, and exact timeline, because again, I keep notepads on my phone of everything, at or around that time, I got Masterpiece Cordon, and I got Ectotron.
Right.
And I got the MP10G, the Ghostbusters Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
So that was my first 3 Transformers. I got Cordon as a kind of consolation prize for not having caught Sunstreaker. I think I got the Ghostbusters ones first, and I was like the perfect. Again, I'm a bit of a magpie, but I was the perfect target demographic for them. I was born in the mid-70s. I grew up with Transformers. I grew up with Ghostbusters. It was like, there's a Transformer that's Ghostbusters. And that's probably what really hooked me into collecting so strongly, because that was a strong hit for a first hit. It's like Transformers, Ghostbusters. It's amazing. I still love Ectotron. I think it's brilliant.
Right.
MP10, I know a lot of people have a lot of love for MP10, but it was MP10, but it was Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
And I just loved them. And I think it was probably shortly after I picked up those that I got Cordon. I did get Sunstreaker again after that, and the whole concern about the price of Masterpiece Transformers went out the window fairly early.
What's new in your collection?
Well, I was really hoping to be able to say MPU Ramjet, but he hasn't turned up this week. He's going to be turning up next week. So that's on its way. And, I've got a few of my latest deliveries here, which shows sort of the range of what I collect. These are new. It's the New Age Bugs.
Yeah,
They're not new, but they're new to me. They've just got reissued.
Right.
And I got those on Shozy, and it ended up being £30 with the negative postage. So for 3 Legend Insecticons. Again, I'm a Masterpiece collector. Here's a Legend figure. One of my other most recent things is Sentinel Prime. I had the missing Link Optimus, and I wasn't going to get this. It's one of those things where I was trying to rein myself in.
Yeah.
But then I think Kapow had it on sale, and I really wanted it, and it's beautiful. I love it. And for me, it's not Sentinel Prime. It's the truck that got scanned in more than the eye. Yeah, that's what it is.
Which really Takara should have marketed it as that rather than
especially with the anniversary. And again, not a Masterpiece scale figure. And the other, I think, newest of those things for me is Vincor Duel. It's the Masterpiece scale. So I guess that's the one of the 3 that does sort of qualify for me being a Masterpiece collector, but not G1 cartoon. It's the Shattered Glass Jetfire.
Right.
So it's the knockoff of the Siege Jetfire.
Yeah. Which
they've blown up to Masterpiece scale.
Yeah.
And again, Magpie is something that caught my eye, and I thought, I'll have that. Because I'd seen the reviews of the first one, heard positive things. Because they did it in the standard colours, of course, and this is their knockoff of the Shattered Glass one. And it's great, it's a fine figure. I had Siege Jetfire in my collection, again, when I first started collecting. From the start, I've had a mixture of mainline, Ectotron was one of my first, that's a mainline figure, although it's a big mainline figure, it's not a Masterpiece by any means. And I had Siege Jetfire, and that was my Jetfire in my collection for quite some time, until I think it was a reissue of Fans Toys Phoenix. I think they did reissue it, and I picked it up on the reissue, and my son's inherited Siege Jetfire, so I've still got Siege Jetfire, but it's in my son's collection now, which is increasingly what happens when I buy a new figure to replace it. That's where my old figures are going to go.
Right. Yeah. Have you? I know you mentioned that you've got the MPU ramjet on its way.
On its way, any day now.
Is there anything else that you're looking out to pick up, and like any other pre-orders that you're waiting to come in?
My pre-orders are always stacked, and yeah, I've got quite a lot on its way imminently. I say ramjet any day now. I'm expecting a Tuesday or Wednesday this week from Shozi. I've ordered Perfect Fusion Cesium, the not quite Fans Toys slag. I do have Fans Toys slag.
Yeah.
In G1 and G2, like the standard one and the G2.
Mm-hmm.
The copy of the G1 one I got does have quite a lot of chrome degradation.
Right.
On his horns and on his feet. I managed to sort out the horns, but the feet I tried to polish and took some of the gold off. So it's not a perfect copy. But Cesium is not quite the same figure, and I'm a bit of a Fans Toys fan.
Right.
And I thought, pick up the reissue, see how it goes. So I'm going to end up with quite a lot of Triceratops in my Dinobot collection. But that's the way. And of course, the other imminent-ish thing from Fans Toys finally is Bandit, Dead End. I think that's due next month now, finally.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to, and not quite looking forward to that, because it's going to be an expensive one, because it's coming with the trailer. So that's on its way. I'm really looking forward to the MMC Constructicons. Now they've finally finished their Protector box.
Yeah.
They should be, I'm guessing, the next thing to come from them will be the Constructicons. And we've seen some quite advanced prototypes or test copies of those being shared by them on social media, so I'm looking forward to those. The other thing I have coming in, I've got an order that I'm quite excited about, but at the same time wondering if I should bother. So I've got the New Age bugs, I've got the Fans Toys bugs, I've got the mainline Legacy bugs, I've got the Doctor Wu Insecticons on order. And don't have any Doctor Wu figures.
No.
They're releasing the full set of standard Insecticons and the deluxe Insecticons as well.
Right.
I've got all those on order, and it's 6 twin packs, because they're packaging them with Carbots, I think. Like the standard Insecticons come with the Datsuns. So I'm sort of interested in those, but there's another one where I'm thinking, do I really need them? Do I really need Doctor Wu Insecticons as well? But I'm intrigued to see how they turn out, because we've only seen renders so far. Might wait to see what the actual reveals are like, and then make up my mind if I really need them or not. But they're on my list as well.
Let's throw something else into there then. If you could, I was going to say, if you'd like to see something made that hasn't been made yet, like a figure or whatever, it could be anything. But then as I thought about that, I thought, well, I can ask that, but also as well, I'll maybe in brackets with that as well. I'd say also if you could design your own toy, what would that be?
Design my own.
Yeah. So is there a figure representation of a character or a toy that hasn't been made that you would like to see being made? And then if you could design your own toy, what would it be? What particular franchise would it be? Which character, etc., things like that.
As to what I want that isn't out there. Well, first of all, this is a terrible answer because it's something that is out there, but I mentioned it already. I want a Masterpiece Bumblebee. And I don't like MP45.
No.
So I did own it. I owned it. It was on display. And I was sat watching telly one night and flicking through my phone, and somebody on Facebook said, "Oh, has anyone got an MP45 for sale?" And I looked at my phone and I looked to the side of me and I thought, I hate that figure.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, I have. And so, I wasn't planning on selling it at all. But somebody asked, and I was like, yeah, I'd rather have £100 than that. I felt it was a letdown. I did not like it. compared to the Fans Toys Cliff Jumper, which you know, it has a few loose joints, but it looks fantastic. It has a bit of a backpack, but not as much as a backpack as other figures.
Yeah,
I know that FT will be doing it one day, but I want to see that. And I mentioned that I'm not actively pursuing the Arc crew, but it'd be nice to tick that off my list. So I would like a Wind Charger. And again, I know XTB have done a Wind Charger, but it's one of the figures that people get very angry about. I've not experienced it myself.
No, I have it. Funnily enough, I was speaking with Ian Arrowfire. We recorded a chat the other day, which I think went out. Did you put it out yesterday or Friday? No, it was yesterday.
I don't think I've seen that one. I've been playing a bit of catch up with some of your chats recently.
Yeah,
I think I've seen it.
Yeah, it was one I did with Arrowfire on his channel, and that went out. Yeah, it went out yesterday. We were discussing third party, like lost third party figures. So ones that had been teased but haven't materialised as yet. And we got chatting about an MP Wind Charger. Like I said, I have the X-Transbots Boost. It's called,
right.
And it
looks okay.
It fills a gap on the shelf. But it's a horrid figure. It's dated. It's dated now. It's dated.
Yeah.
Compared to what's out. The transformation is horrific. Even for X-Transbots, the transformation is horrific. So he's just on the shelf until Fans Toys pulls the finger out and does one. Likewise with MP45. I mean, I still have MP21. The original one.
I've been tempted to pick up the KO of that because I think it looks better. I prefer it.
So I've still got that. I've got the MP45. And like I say, I kept MP21 so I'd have Spike in the exosuit.
Yeah.
Should I wish to do that kind of photo. Yeah. And then I got the MP45, like I say, and that's just filling a gap until Fans Toys,
I think it's pretty amazing how much MP45 compacts the sort of chibi alt mode.
Yeah.
It's a clever figure, but it's amazing how much robot and how much kibble there is on the robot for something that's that small in alt mode.
Yeah. It's the feet that do it for me.
Yeah.
It looks like he's wearing like those snowshoes thing, like
from the front. He looks okay on the shelf. From the front he looked okay, but I was just like, I knew that I'd be replacing him one day, and things about it bothered me. So when somebody was like, I would like to buy this, absolutely fine to let him go. And other things that I would like to see, and I know Fans Toys have tackled some of them, is I'd like a full set of G2 Dinobots.
Going to that second part of that question that I was going to say about if you could design your toy, have you any ideas what that might be?
I wish I had access to my cupboard upstairs because I was obviously a childhood fan of Transformers, and I've got something within reach. Somewhere up here. Somewhere, I know in a cupboard upstairs, I've got some Transformers I designed when I was a kid.
Oh, right. Yeah, excellent.
And I remember distinctly one of them was called Hi-Fi, and it was the type of stereo that you don't get anymore, where it's like a stacked stereo system with radio, cassettes, record player, and a record player on top. And he was a stereo sort of stacking system block,
right?
And like the turntable rose up, and you had a circular head that was the record turntable, and the clear cover that went over the record player became his shield, and it was a box that arms came out of and legs came out of. So I distinctly remember I did design a Transformer, and it was called Hi-Fi. So yes, I guess if I was going to design a Transformer, I'd have to realise Hi-Fi, my childhood design. I
can picture it now. As you sat doing whatever you're doing, or when you walk into your room and you've got your collection and things like that, is there a particular piece that you're vibing on at the moment? Like that one piece that you just seem to gravitate towards and you just keep picking up and having a little fiddle about with?
I mentioned I'm not a great one for fiddling, fidgeting, transforming. I get them, I play with them, I take photos of them, and then they sort of go back on the shelf.
What I will ask you then is, because I altered this question, do Do you have a particular figure in mind that would be your desert island figure? You know, so you're stranded on a desert island and you can have one figure with you.
Yes, I've got a couple of things for this. One of my ideas would be X-Transbots. Their Cosmos, Klaatu.
Oh, yeah.
One of the reasons I say that, and I've mentioned I'm not a great one for transforming. I'm not going to attempt to do transformation YouTube guides. Is because I'm not very good at transforming masterpiece figures without having detailed instructions in front of me. But that is one of the few figures in my collection that I can transform without need for any instructions.
Yeah.
It is a fantastic figure. It's intuitive, it's sturdy, it's easy to transform, and I've got the Klaatu metallic green one, Cosmos. And I've also got Barada, which is the GoBot recolor, the blue one.
Yeah.
And I love it. It's a great figure, and I can transform it without having to be able to access Wi-Fi and YouTube. So at least I'd be able to transform it if I was stuck on a desert island. Another thing that came to mind, just the playability. If you're stuck with one figure, why not have a figure you can do loads with? I've got a couple of the TFC toys. They call it the Supreme Tactile Commander, I think. I don't even know if tactile is a word. What's they call it? But you're aware of that figure. It's the one that's like a massive Optimus Prime. I've got the Nuclear Blast version. The original one, I think, was in Optimus colours, red and blue. I don't have that one.
Yeah, I know which one you mean.
Yeah. But those figures, I've got the Monkey King one that's based on Monkey, the Chinese TV show, that's red and yellow. I've got the Ice Wolf version, the blue one, and I've got the one they did quite recently, which is all in black, and it's basically like a Diaclone figure. Right. We might touch on Diaclone later. It's something I don't collect. But this one, it's just got so many options, so many display options, different versions, different configurations for vehicle and robot mode, different drones you can make with the parts. There's so much playability there. So that's why I mentioned that as possibly being a good desert island figure, just because there's a lot to do with it. Harking back to perhaps what might have been a previous version of this question, like neither of those are necessarily my favourite figure. They're not the best thing in my collection, which would probably be like my save if you're in a fire figure would probably be my G2 Sever Fans Toys, the red version of Snarl. I love it to bits.
Yeah. What other interests do you have outside your main collecting focus? You know, like are there any other toy lines, or I know you mentioned you're doing the custom work and things like that. So do you want to tell us about any of that?
So customizing obviously directly touches on the collecting, but in terms of mainline figures, if I buy a mainline figure, which I do quite often, I will usually do something to it. Whether it's just a toy hack set or an upgrade kit, or a bit of panel lining, or a bit of chrome pen, or a full like this. I repainted Blaster as the Rainmakers. All three. I've done all three Rainmakers. I can't remember quite why I thought to do that, but it was a follow-on from the Bumble Blaster saga. So customizing is a big thing to me that's directly related to collecting. Photography for me is a side interest that's directly related to collecting. In terms of other toy lines, I'm trying not to. I've mentioned Diaclone. I love the look of Diaclone. It looks amazing. But I've made a conscious decision to just not go there.
This is the modern iteration of Diaclone, not the vintage stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we touch on some of the vintage stuff I actually had as a child, but not quite Diaclone. We mentioned Grandstand Converters, but I think we touch on that later. But I would love to have some of the stuff they come out with, but I'm holding myself back. And likewise, Beastbox. Beastbox looks ace. My son's got a load of Beastbox stuff. Are you aware of that?
No, I'm not.
They're cubes that turn into things.
Okay.
I don't have any at hand, and they're often animal type things, which is why they're called Beastbox. And I've got one Beastbox figure that's an axolotl that turns into a cube, because it came as part of a 3-pack, and I bought it. All 3 of them, and I gave 2 to my sons and kept 1 for myself. Yeah, my son, he's got like a butterfly, a bull, some beetles. I've managed to avoid the Machina mask toys. So the Raman Toys mask toys, look incredible. They're quite high end. They're like masterpiece level pricing almost, though. Right, which has helped me stay away from them. But I'm a bit worried about the Loyal Subjects line that's coming out in a few months. Have you seen the Loyal Subjects mask toys?
I have, yes. Yeah.
Are you interested in those?
I would be lying if I said that my interest wasn't piqued.
Mask. Did you have mask?
No. I mean, this will probably come up later on, but no. I tell you what. We might as well just go straight into it now, because it is the next question. So it's like, it's about the toys and stuff, that you toys and games that encapsulated your childhood and and favourites therein. So I'll get me thoughts on Mask out of the way, and then I'll concede the floor to you, sir. But Mask, I had cousins that had the Mask toys. Yeah. But obviously they were a bit younger than me. I would see them. I always thought they looked nice. But even as a kid, I felt that they just felt really, really brittle. And I felt that if you were to play with them robustly, that they may not survive. So no, they were the kind of things, cousins had. I'd pick them up and have a look at them and say, oh yeah, this is pretty cool, blah, blah, and then just put them down. But these Loyal Subjects... Yeah, I'd be lying if I said that my interest wasn't piqued, and it would be a case of I wouldn't go full in on them. I think it would be a case of it would maybe be the Rhino and the. Oh, I was just about to say the name of it. Thunderhawk. No, the Miles Mayhem's the
Venom.
Venom.
Yeah. Not Venom.
Switchblade, yes.
Yeah,
Switchblade.
Although they're not calling that, they're giving them new names. I'm worried. I'm really worried that I'm going to end up going all in on them. Mask, I perhaps, and again, we'll touch on this shortly, held on to childish things a little longer than I might have done, and I did have a big Mask collection. Right. It's one of my childhood traumas, actually. All of my Mask toys were put in a plastic trunk. In care of my mother when we moved house and put in a loft somewhere, and they've been lost. So somewhere in the West Country is a plastic trunk full of Mask toys that my mum says she gave to some friend of the family to put in their loft, and they can't remember that happening. So right. I had Outlaw, I had Stinger, I had Condor, I had Raven, and who knows what else. And I still occasionally have trauma dreams about this lost box of toys.
Yeah. So on that then, Lucas, do you want to tell us about the toys and games and things like that shape your childhood?
So it's funny because I'm so tied up in the Transformers community these days, and my Facebook is wall-to-wall Transformers. That I was born in '75. I don't know quite when you were born, but similar era. We had so much going on. There were so many options for excellent toys. It was a really rich tapestry. The Transformers were just a small part of it, weren't they? The other thing that's important for me, in terms of understanding where I'm coming from, I grew up in a small, not even a village, a hamlet in Wiltshire, rural Wiltshire in the West Country. My childhood was roaming across fields, building dens, making bows and arrows, playing in the farmers' barns. Like, I had a crazy, idyllic childhood thing going on, but there were toys. We had toys as well. And so, against all of that, you know, when I came home from roaming across the fields, cycling out with my mates, building dens, there were toys there, of course. And I did have some Transformers, and with a lot of my toys, my best mate James was a big factor. Like I mentioned, I had 2 of the Stunticons. Like I'd have 2 and he'd have the other 3. And there's the same with the aerial bots. I had 2 of those and he had the other 3, and we'd get together on play dates, you'd call it now. Like I'd cycle over to the next village with a carrier bag with Transformers in, and we'd play Transformers, we'd play Mask. I did have some Transformers, not a huge amount. No. Never had a huge amount of Transformers, and of course I had GoBots as well. It was a mixture of Transformers and GoBots. One of the big things I remember as a child was the GoBots Command Center, that thing that was like a sort of Timu AT-AT. You know exactly what I mean. I loved it, and I've still got in a box upstairs, I've got the hose from the GoBot Command Center. God knows what happened to the rest of it. And I had not quite Transformers. I had the didn't have Jetfire, but I had the Valkyrie, the grey one. And in fact, what's it called? Something Valkyrie. But it was like grey Jetfire, UN Spacey on the gun. And I was reunited with that a couple of years ago. My mum said, "Is
it something like the VF1 S? Is it Roy Fokker? I think is the pilot for it. I think it is
something like that."
Yeah.
And my mum sent me a photo like about a year ago saying, "Do you want this?" I was like, "Yes." She did the same with my G1 Soundwave. Is this yours? Yes. So I've been reunited with my G1s. It's not on the shelves here. And my Valkyrie, and I had, we've mentioned, I think, Grandstand converters.
Yeah.
I had, there was something called Alphatron.
Yes. Yeah.
Which was a Diaclone knockoff. That's the one that was a large robot made up of, like, each of his arms was a spaceship, each of his feet was a spaceship, his chest was a spaceship. It's like multiple vehicles that combined into Alphatron. I had that, and it was probably the Grandstand converters one. I don't think I would have had the Diaclone thing. It would have been something you picked up. They probably sold them in catalogues in the UK. So it was probably like my gran or my parents, like, "Oh, Luke likes robots. We'll get him that."
I can recall seeing them in the early Argos catalogues. You know, the Grandstand. Exactly. You know,
and I also had. It was called, I had to research this, it's called the Deltarian Tracker. Now, this was a blue thing with tracks where the sides of it split open like that.
Yes.
And a radar dish at the back, and it shot a little bit. It was the Diaclone. Diaclone is called the Cosmo Roller or something.
Right.
Now, that, again, is something that if they did reissue it, or a version of it recently in Diaclone, and it's something that if I could find the Grandstand converters Deltarian Tracker or the Diaclone Cosmo Roller, I would buy it, because I have such strong memories of that as a kid. And I had a lot of Mask toys. And again, remembering playing with my mate, like, we would literally play with these. What I remember a lot of is Blue Tack and Lego and amalgamating things and making things and adding stuff, like what we call now fan modes of vehicles, but very rough fan modes as kids. I remember, you know, when you're a kid, bikes were a massive thing. BMXs were all the rage when we were kids, and everyone wanted a BMX. And I think I wanted a rally grifter was what I really wanted, but I ended up with something out of a catalogue that was a cheap. I remember my bike it was so heavy. It was a cheap, heavy bike that had suspension that had solid springs. Just like a cheap knockoff rally grifter.
Well, where I grew up, there was a kid lived at the end of the street who had a grifter. And I can remember one particular day he fell, he fell off the bike, and it pinned him to the floor. And legend stays that he's still pinned to the floor.
They were heavy as well, were they? I just thought my knockoff was heavy.
Yeah, the rally grifter was notoriously heavy. It was the kind of bike, when we used to make Evel Knievel stunt jumps, with a milk crate and a plank of wood. Yeah. When it was our turn to lay on the floor to be jumped over, if it was him that was on the grifter, everyone refused. Like, no, not on the grifter. They're not doing it with the grifter.
Did you ever know anyone with a Rally Vector, that electric bike?
Oh yes, I know which one you mean. No, that was
That was
where
like
I grew up.
After things.
Yeah, where I grew up, that was thing of legend. It was only ever seen in catalogues. I knew even now, I've still never seen one actually in reality.
No. I mean, there were all those things you got in catalogs that you clipped your handlebars that made noises and shit.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think a kid at our primary school, the rich kid, I think he had his family had a Sinclair C5. That was another thing. That was like that was like the stuff of legends when we were kids.
Yeah, I always wanted one.
Or there was a yellow thing on the handlebars that did siren.
Yes. Yeah, well, I had one of those. I also had one of those. It was like the black thing that went over the end of the handlebar, and when you did that, it made like a motorbike noise.
What we didn't. Growing up in a small village, we would have bulldog clips and card going through the spokes, so they sounded just like a motorbike when you cycle along. Now, computers. I mean, it was really early days computers. I never had a Spectrum.
No.
I had.
Well, thanks for chatting, Lucas. I think I'll call it a day there at that.
I had. You probably know more about what this is than me. I had a Commodore Plus 4, I think.
Right. And
it wasn't even a C64. It wasn't.
No.
I don't think it was even 16-bit. It was something in between. Maybe it was 16-bit plus 4. Well, I don't know what it was, but it was definitely called a Commodore Plus 4. And that was our first home computer thing. And I distinctly remember it had a game on it called Fire Ant, which I recently forced my boys to watch a YouTube video of someone playing Fire Ant to show them what computer games were like when I was a child, and they found it very boring. It was very exciting. And I had... my cousins had the Mega Drive. I never had a Mega Drive. I didn't have a console till I was at uni, and I got a PlayStation or had access to a PlayStation.
Yeah.
I never had that. Growing up with computers, childhood just didn't go down that route, which I know a lot of people did. Like for me, it was dens, it was fields, it was building rafts.
Yeah. So did you have a favourite toy? Was there one particular favourite toy that you had as a kid that you can recall?
Like I said, I've got strong memories of that GoBot command center. I've got strong memories of Soundwave and the tapes, and of Snarl, G1 Snarl.
Yeah.
But my strongest memories are of the village life and just playing out.
Yeah. After you've come back from playing out, you're having your tea, or you've finished school and you're having your tea, and that what cartoons and stuff like that you're watching as a kid, and I mean the comics factor in there as well, and have you any favourites that you can remember from those?
I remember running, everyone going, "It's time for Dallas, let's run home." Right. Dallas was the big thing in the 80s. For those who, it's not even remembered much anymore, but of course, it was the time we grew up, there was so much on, but it was always Saturday morning stuff, Whack-A-Day, Number 73, CBBC, and I do remember watching Transformers. I do remember the GoBots cartoon. And then there's those mega cartoons like Ulysses and City of Gold, which would just hold your attention for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
I did rewatch Ulysses recently with my son.
Right.
My older son, because he's into the Greek myths. He's very much, he likes Percy Jackson and stuff like that. And he likes the actual Greek myths and Greek history. I was like, I know what you'd like. We'll watch Ulysses. And that was fun to rewatch because I haven't seen it since I was 10 or whatever. Dungeons and Dragons, He-Man, of course. I used to love Nightmare. I've got one of my favourites on YouTube. There's Nightmare Uploader, where they upload old episodes, and I tried to make my son watch that. He's not impressed. He's not up there with virtual reality these days, but that was a good one. And going back even further than Nightmare, I remember the adventure game.
Gronda.
And I've watched some of that on YouTube, and it is hard work. It is slow. TV was just paced differently in those days, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've watched quite a few episodes because there's quite a few episodes on YouTube of the adventure game, and I think I prefer the first series episodes to the later ones. Mainly, probably that's because what I remember the most. On that side of it. Yeah. But the talking Aspidestra, that was...
but some of the puzzles, it's like watching someone in an escape room, and it's real time, and you just think, wow, TV was paced so differently in those days. It's great to see. And those sort of slightly mystical TV shows based on books like Tripods, Chucky, Box of Delights, of course, Christmas classic. And then there's all the Saturday afternoon action stuff, Knight Rider, 18, Blue Thunder, Auto Man, which I can vaguely remember the guy with that looked like he was out of Tron. But of course, this was the early days for us. Of course, it's on Netflix these days, but of having video rental shops.
Yes.
And the whole family going out to the video rental shop. Where you just go, and I particularly remember we got Flash Gordon on the video and watched that, and very exciting getting out videos in those days. Like our video control had a remote control with a wire on it. Comics, I know you're a Beano man. I had the Dandy, so again, time to end the interview. I remember getting the Dandy. I remember getting the Mask comic.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever got any of the Transformers comics. I'm not hot on the Transformers comic lore. But I do certainly remember getting the Mask comic. I also remember having a cupboard full of those weird little army comics, or like small format.
Commando.
I don't know what it was.
They're called Commando.
Probably, yeah. And they almost had long format stories in and stuff. It was all seemed like longer format, and I had a lot of those, and I think I quite enjoyed them. I just don't quite remember why I had them or how I acquired them. It was just something that was around in those days. I used to love comics, and I used to love drawing cartoons. Always used to draw Garfield all the time and stuff like that. Copying images from comics. It was great fun.
So out of all that then, can you encapsulate, would you say, do you have a standout memory of a particular birthday or Christmas toy that was like, wow,
I do have distinct memories of receiving Soundwave and Snarl in respect of Transformers.
Right.
Certainly. I still have my Soundwave. Very lucky, reunited with him a few years ago. He's a bit worse for wear, but I keep meaning to. There's a very good Toy Polloi video on restoring Soundwave, which I mean to work my way through to tighten him up. And my Snarl, the only thing I've got left of Snarl, one of the blades from his back, like the spines, I've got one of those in a box upstairs. And I've got his gun, and I've got his sword.
Yeah.
In fact, I did take a picture of one of my New Age snarls with holding the G1 snarl sword. I bought a knockoff G1 snarl from AliExpress. It's a bit janky. It's not quite there, but it's nice to have. And I remember, do you know Big Track?
I am aware of Big Track, yeah.
I did not have Big Track. I had the Brain.
Right.
Which was like Temu Big Track.
Yeah.
It did the same thing as Big Track, but wasn't Big Track. I remember that being a big thing, and even though I didn't care, it was a knockoff as a kid. And that bike I've mentioned, that huge unwieldy bike, I do remember getting that as a present. I think I might have been slightly disappointed with how heavy it was, but I did love it. And I'm just throwing it down when I was out cycling in the village.
Can you recall what would have been maybe not the last, but one of the last toys that you got before you kind of, put those things away and moved on?
Yeah, well, I think I mentioned I perhaps held on to childish things longer than some people might have done, but there was a move away and a progression, and part of that progression was Games Workshop. Like from toys, childhood toys, I moved into Games Workshop for a while. Right. And I got into collecting miniatures. I remember like Blood Bowl. Blood Bowl might have been one of the last toys I ever bought. Which my son's getting into his Warhammer shenanigans now, and so I go into the Games Workshop. It's not called Games Workshop anymore, it's called Warhammer, isn't it? Right. And so I go into the shop in town and I see they're still selling Blood Bowl, but I remember that. So that was sort of moving away from toys into, it's a bit more grown up. I'm doing violent American football stuff. And do you remember, I loved it. Dark Future, it was called, and it was a Games Workshop game, but it was like a Mad Max road war game, and they had almost Matchbox style cars. And I remember like buying cars and customizing them and painting them. And Dark Future, there's no trace of it now. It seems like it wasn't successful or something, but I remember that. And then moving away from the miniatures, the figures, getting into role-playing games and Dungeons and Dragons as a teenager, and from Dungeons and Dragons there was a game based on vampires that I think was called Vampire, and there was one called Paranoia, which was a lot more sort of comedy based and a bit more grown up still. But I remember getting to the stage where I sort of wasn't taking that stuff seriously and sort of growing out of that. And around that time, again, moving away from toys, I'd be instead getting into sort of art, fantasy art, Rodney Matthews, Roger Dean, and I started collecting sort of postcards of Rodney Matthews art and fantasy art and posters, and living in the West Country, living near Glastonbury. And at the time it was like going into the 90s now, we're talking about with new age stuff. I started getting into buying crystals and little statues of dragons and stuff like that, like ornamental stuff rather than just toys. And it was still quite sort of childish stuff, but that's kind of how I started to move away from it and sort of buying stuff to decorate my room instead of toys to play with, I guess. So, and I started to get into music and buying records. Then I sort of stopped buying toy stuff.
I'm not going to bother asking this question because you already touched upon it, because this is the point where I would ask, if you could ever see yourself stopping collecting. But, as you mentioned earlier on, that you can't envisage that. So I'm going to say
it's very open-ended for me. I'm going to get a shock when I move into my new place and see my whole collection. That's one thing I have thought.
What would you say that you like and dislike most about collecting then?
For me, I do enjoy the community. As I've said, Facebook for me has now become a place for robot. In fact, I have 2 Facebook accounts. I have one for family shenanigans and
Yeah.
the purpose of what I think Facebook used to be for me.
Mm-hmm.
But my RoboLukas Facebook is all about keeping in touch with the community, staying up to date with news, and I wish there was somewhere other than Facebook, in a way, sometimes, because there's so much stuff on there that I wish wasn't there, and I have to wade my way through, like the spam. But if you stay within the groups, stay within the community, I think there's an awful lot of positive stuff there. I do like making these connections, and I have sort of conversations going on with, we've mentioned Plastic Crack and Despot Quick Shots. There's a guy called Aid in the group, so I'm regularly in contact with. There's people who I just sort of, there's all these little conversations going on in the background all the time, which I like. And occasionally you do get to meet people in real life. I went to TF UK Con last year, which was nice to get to. That was in the capacity of the decal store, RoboLukas decal store, selling my decals, but it was nice to meet some people in real life, like Rohan's Corner and well, all the people involved with TF UK, Luke, Gav, and some of the other people who were presenting there. So it was nice to sort of meet some people. I popped up to Newcastle to meet Plastic Crack and Despot Quick Shots for a drink one time, which was nice. But most of the community does happen online. So I do like that it is a good, supportive community. Sometimes online you do get some of the negative aspects and people who are sort of get too strict about only liking G1 or only liking official toys, or jumping on people if they get something wrong. Other stupid things I don't like. I don't care about Transformers with internal details. I don't care about weapon storage. Like, some people make a big fuss about it, but to me, whenever a company tries to do internal details on a vehicle, like X-Transbot's Fury's steering wheel into a hole in the windscreen. It's just like, what's the point? I hate it when people think that if they're going to post a picture of a fembot, they have to give it a stupid sexy pose. It's just like, why do you have to overly sexualize things? But like I say, other than that, I think the community is
that's one thing that kind of puzzles me, is that, well, I mean, I don't get the whole fembot thing anyway. There's because the robots, but aside,
there's a whole other discussion.
When they design a fembot is always designed as being quite curvaceous and feminine. But then the other robots aren't. The other robots are all blocky and clunky, and it's like, well, you know, so there's always that disparity in the way that they're designed, kind of thing. But anyway, but like you say, I ain't getting into that because I think, I think a lot of people wouldn't like what I have to say on that one anyway.
I still haven't settled on a Masterpiece RC. None of them quite do it for me. I really want one, but I
have Rouge. Rouge is on my shelf. And if you don't pick it up and mess about with it, it's a great figure. But if you pick it up, there's no locking mechanisms for the whatever they want to call them.
There's a kit for that, isn't there? I think there's a 3D kit for that.
You know, so they kind of like flop about, or just, you know, so there's no locking mechanisms for that. And then if you don't transform the legs correctly, because the legs split partway on the thigh, you know, so you can bend them round for transformation, then obviously they can get a bit out of shape. But other than that, it's got nice detail. It's got, you know, it's usual Fans Toys quality. It's just like, there's just those few little bits. And to be fair, I only got it so it would complete my 86 movie lineup.
That's what I need. That's what's missing for mine. You know, I've got.
If I hadn't have decided to go on the 86 movie lineup, I would not have bought it, because it's something that doesn't interest me. You know, even as a kid, it was like, why the robots? Why? But anyway. Anyway, so okay. Moving on to the next part is, advice that you'd give to a new collector just starting out. I mean, it doesn't have to be collecting; you can be collecting anything, But if they came to you and say, right, I'm looking at starting collecting, is there any advice you would give me? What would it be? What pearls of wisdom?
Well, going by my approach, I would say, don't feel like you have to stick to a theme. Don't say, just buy what you like. That's what I do. I see something, I think, that looks cool. I don't think, but will it fit my collection? Like, for a while I did. I tried to rein myself into, will it fit my collection? Like, I bought a bunch of New Age stuff early on, Legends, and I sold my Megatron, I sold my Starscream, I sold my Shockwave, and it's just like, I don't collect Legends, I must get rid of them, I must focus on G1 cartoon. And then I sort of realised, I don't really, they were cool, I liked them. I've since bought back the Shockwave.
Right.
New Age Shockwave is one of the best figures I've ever owned. I've got the X version, but I'm guessing it's similarly good in all. The reason I bought it back recently, I've mentioned I'm getting the Masterpiece Combaticons, and Magic Square reissued their Legend Scale Shockwave with a slight modification so it could be held as a gun by the Masterpiece. What's it called when they all combine the Combaticons? I can't remember right now.
Bruticus.
Yeah, Bruticus. So they've modified it so Bruticus can hold the Shockwave in gun form. And it was reissued, and it was very cheap. It was like £20 or something, which I think is cheaper than the standard issue. So I picked that up because I thought, okay, it'll be good as an accessory. And when I got it, I just thought, I miss New Age Shockwave because this is good, but that was better. So I bought that back, and since then I've given up on the whole I don't collect Legends. It's like, I don't buy all the New Age stuff. Like, the hoist they've just revealed looks fantastic. I'm not going to buy it though. The Sunstreaker they put out recently looks fantastic. I'm not going to buy it, but I do buy quite a lot of New Age stuff. So like I say, buy what you like. Don't feel like you have to stick in your lane. And the other thing I'd say to new collectors, that was a big thing when I started out, particularly with fans' toys, about the fear of missing out and panic and, you must get it on a pre-order. Just doesn't seem to be a thing these days. And I think the watershed moment for that was probably when fans' toys reissued their Insecticons.
Right.
Which, I don't know if you were in on that, but it was almost like it almost broke the internet because everyone really wanted them, and literally I was having to it was like buying Glastonbury tickets. I was having to refresh, and desperate to get them. And then they've been available for months ever since, and it seems like ever since then nothing's really been, like, everything's there. Like, if you miss the pre-order, it'll be there when it gets ready.
It's now the next question I've got is basically it's your question for me. Is there anything you'd like to ask me?
Yes. So I can see your amazing collection of computers behind you there, Spectrums. You love your Spectrums. And I'm sorry to offend you by never having owned one. So you have to slim down. You have to sell up some of the stuff you collect and focus on just one thing. What's it going to be? Is it going to be Transformers? Is it going to be Spectrums? Is it going to be something else? What are you focusing on?
Right. Interesting. You might have to give me a moment to think about this. It literally is. It's like trying to, it's like asking someone who's got two children which is the favourite child. Yeah, you can't do it. I just can't. However, that said, gun to my head, I think I would choose to keep the Spectrum stuff over the Transformers.
I had a feeling you were going to say that for some reason. I don't know why.
And I think I'd say there could be a variety of reasons. I mean, if God forbid, if I was to be in a situation where I needed money, the Transformers would go, because I know that my Transformers collection would fetch more money than what my Spectrum collection would.
Yeah.
because like the Spectrum stuff, some of it is harder to get, but it's at a better price point than what, say, the harder stuff of the Transformer stuff is to get. It's a relatively inexpensive hobby, if you will, is that.
Right.
So the Spectrum, the Transformer stuff would go. I think also another reason it would be is that I would say probably 90% of the Spectrum stuff I have a direct experience of or correlation. It's stuff that I had as a kid growing up.
Is it actually the stuff you had as a kid or stuff you bought?
No, it's stuff that I had, you know, that I mean, because my original Spectrum stuff from being a child, it's gone. You know, it's a lost to time kind of thing.
Like my mask toys.
Yeah, so I've had to buy it back. I've had to buy all that stuff back. But what I mean is, it's stuff that I had hands-on one-to-one experience with growing up. Transformers wise, I would say there's only really probably about 30% of it is stuff that I had as a kid.
Yeah, I've got very little. I mean, of course,
yeah.
As a masterpiece collection, none of it's stuff we had as a kid.
No,
it's all new iterations.
Yeah, but what I mean is in the respect of like representations of characters. Yeah,
yeah.
So like the Transformer side of it, I didn't have a lot of Transformers as a kid, even though ironically now I suppose my main collecting focus has been is Transformers. So yeah, I think I would potentially choose to stick with the Spectrum and the retro games, because I have a selection of old Atari VCSs as well and things like that, you know. So I think I'd choose to stick with that. If you was to ask me which I would choose, if I could go back and choose what I wanted to collect before I started collecting stuff, I think I'd probably go down the route of collecting some of the earlier stuff, childhood stuff, because much like yourself, like I say, you know, we're 70s kids. There was a whole load of toys and toy lines and things like that came long before Transformers rocked up. I mean, you know, Transformers came along when I was 10.
Yeah.
So I had 2 years of Transformers, and that were it. 2 years and done.
Yeah.
But there was a huge chunk of time before Transformers arrived. $6 Million Man, Evel Knievel, Action Man, die-cast toys. Yeah, there was all that stuff.
We haven't even mentioned Star Wars today. I'm sure I had Star Wars on my list. I had
Star Wars stuff. So there was more toys that I had more time with than what I did with Transformers when they came. So I think it would be that stuff. I think that's what it would be. You know, that's how my collection probably would have gone, you know, going back. But I don't regret anything. I like my collection. I like where it is at the moment. I like the community that it's made me a part of. I like the connections and the friendships that I've made through it.
Yeah.
And so I'm in a fortunate position where I can enjoy both my Transformer collection and my Spectrum collection. Basically because as it stands at the moment, both are done. They're done. My Spectrum collection is done because I've got everything I want to get and there's nothing else now. Transformer collection's done because I only pick up now to upgrade or replace. Right then, Lucas, well, that's it. We're at the end of our chat. So what I will do is, because I forgot to do it at the beginning, I forgot to ask you to introduce yourself and tell people where they can find you on the socials. So what I will do is, if you want to take this opportunity to just remind people who you are and where they can find you.
Okay, so I'm Lukas. I go by RoboLukas on my social medias. I'm active on Facebook, I'm active on Instagram. I also operate as RoboLukas Decal store, selling faction logos for Transformers. But it's all sort of ties into RoboLukas. But I have a Linktree / RoboLukas, which has got links to all of my various outputs. So if you want to find me, search RoboLukas. You should find me there.
Right, excellent, good stuff. Right, well, thank you very much, Lucas. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come and chat with us and have a trip down memory lane and telling us about what you're at and where you're going and things like that. So all that's left to say again is thank you. Appreciate your time, and we'll catch up with you sometime.
Thank you. It's been a nice chat.
Thank you for watching the Collector's Archive. To ensure you never miss an episode, please select the like, subscribe, and notification icons. The Vaults of Icon.